let's dive into the Burbs because,
Okay.
like I said, we're the same age. So, 1977 was a big year. Not only were we um, put into the world, but Star Wars was as well, right?
Right.
So I, as most men of my age did, massive crush on Carrie Fisher.
Yep.
So the Burbs comes out. It's got Tom Hanks, who I loved from Splash and stuff he was doing. Carrie was in it. I'm like, yeah, family night. We're gonna go watch the Burbs. And I remember just being in the on the couch with the family, watching this thing and thinking, what is this? Because it's a family film, family entertainment, but it's like this horror aspect and
That's right.
you got these bizarre looking people, and it's not like anything else that was being produced at that time. And I mean, this was pre-Rob Zombie, pre a lot of things that are sort of like cheeky horror.
Right.
The Burbs came out of total left field with a fantastic cast.
Yeah.
Um, and just sort of shook things up, and you kind of realize like this was like a movie coming from Mars, uh,
Yeah.
riding on HBO on a Friday night. So you're getting into this movie, and you've got Tom Hanks, who's bigger than big at that point. Rick's very popular. I was a big fan of his.
Yes.
Carrie Fisher is Carrie Fisher, and then on the other side of the spectrum, you've got Brother Theodore, who's this immense, very singular person, as I'm sure you know better than I do.
Yes.
So for you, still being a kid
Yeah.
on this set, um, what was the experience like for you just being in the presence of this ensemble cast of very interesting, very colorful people?
It was incredible. And we knew it. Walking into that table read, I remember the table read was at Universal and they had this big conference room and we all met for the first time and going from, this is Bruce Dern, hi, nice to meet you, to this is Tom Hanks, nice to meet you. This is Carrie Fisher, nice to meet you. Rick Dukeman, nice to meet you. Um, Wendy Shaw, who was on tons of stuff at the time. I mean, I recognized her. It was kind of mind blowing, and it was mind blowing even then um, for them, for everybody in the room, because it was such a good cast and it was such an odd movie, and we knew it was an odd movie, and all of these people were agreeing to be part of this. Um, so it was extremely exciting, and I get emotional thinking about it now because I think it makes me sad that many of them are gone.
Mm,
Um, and we were all I was young, but they were all young. Um, and that's one of the things about life that's it's a good reminder when I look back on this stuff that you have to stop and really smell the roses. You have to take those moments and really hold on to them. Take mental pictures of things, and it was before cell phone cameras.
mm.
So all those little snapshots that we have in our mind become invaluable. I mean, or the most valuable. They become the most valuable things we have. I can remember what people looked like sitting at the table across from me reading. Um, and I'm just so proud of it now. There were many years that I didn't talk about my acting.
Mhm.
Uh, when I quit when I was about 17 and up until I was about 35, it was like a known thing, with my friends. Don't bring it up. He doesn't like to talk about it. Doesn't Now I love to talk about it. Um, I have a lot of pride in it. It reminds me of my mom, who I got to spend a lot of time with, who passed away, and she believed in me, and she was my acting coach, and um, that's the time that I would give anything for now, to experience that stuff. So it's kind of a wonderful thing to reminisce about it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to your point, even in the course of the year and a half I've been doing this channel, I've had a few guests pass away. That's just unfortunately the way this whole thing works. And yeah, as you mentioned, there are some tremendous people not with us anymore from the Burbs cast. Specifically for me, because I am such a fan, I'm hoping for your indulgence. We can talk a little bit about Carrie because um, I find her fascinating, not just because I'm a wild Star Wars fan, but as I've gotten older, I've watched the art of making those films and really appreciating more of the effort and the skill that went into conveying all those iconic moments.
Yeah,
And there are some scenes in Empire Strikes Back, where there's obviously some tension between herself and, Han Solo,
yeah,
and she gives him looks. And, I've now realized the art of the expression, like the gift of conveying 1,000 words with a stare or
right.
a look. And Carrie Fisher really had that. I think that's sometimes missed because those films are so bombastic. But Carrie had that subtle, she told the story with her eyes. She told the story with the way she delivered a line, and sometimes it was the quieter, unspoken moments that said the most to me,
Yeah.
studying her work. And of course, she just seems to be such a character in interviews, and such a lack of pretentiousness from my perspective. Um,
And a great writer.
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you were working with her on set, I mean, how close to the mark am I as far as when I think about her use of just even facial expression and the way she would, you know,
You're right on. You're right on. She was totally professional, um, very good at what she did, and I think that the Burbs is a good testament to that. Her interactions with Tom and with me and I mean, with Rick, it was great. She was a very serious person on the set. I think that from my understanding, she was very focused on sobriety at the time.
Mhm.
So where a lot of us were out in the cul-de-sac the whole time playing, while they were setting up lights, and Tom and I every day were throwing the baseball in the cul-de-sac with our gloves. Carrie spent a lot of time, I think, in her trailer. Um, Not to say that she wasn't close with everybody, and enjoying the summer like we were, but there was a certain seriousness to her at that time that I do remember. Um, but the interesting thing, and I thought about this recently. Um, I was a huge Star Wars buff too, and though I was a huge Star Wars buff, somehow I was. You get protected when you're an actor, and you kind of lose sight of the, oh wow, this is Princess Leia playing my mom. You forget that. I don't think I thought about it once I was, in working on set. I really don't think it ever occurred to me that, wow, this is the same person that was in. I mean, I knew it, but it didn't flash into my head. And that's something interesting that actors they'll identify with that. Um, your mind protects itself somehow from getting starstruck.
Right, right. I think it's the same with musicians too, I've been very fortunate. I've had moments in my life where I've performed shows in front of thousands of people with people who were on posters in my bedroom when I was a kid.
Right.
And it's a risk to get starstruck because you should be getting on with a job,
That's right.
and the job in that case is to, be the musician, serve the song, provide something for the audience. Freak out later, when the job is done and the show's over, everybody's happy, but you can't get lost in a moment of, oh my God, this person's, because they're looking at you for the same cues you're looking at from them, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's deep. Art is deep. Collaborative art is deep.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, the mind protects itself so that you can keep going and not get stopped by the star power or the history or past history of somebody. You're right. That's a perfect example. Yeah.
So, the movie comes out, and as I said earlier, it was such a bizarre film, a great film, and hysterical film, and in many ways just a perfect movie for what it is. And as you said, it's gone on culturally to have this sort of ongoing life. What was the response like that you recall at the time when this thing came out?
It I remember it debuted at number one the first week it came out, and that was very exciting. Um, but for 20 years, no one talked about it.
Mm,
Um, and that's a good lesson that I try and talk to people about. And when I'm talking about my life, is that, you never know what that future is going to be for any of these creative projects, but at the time, it was kind of brushed off as one of those Tom Hanks movies that he did, around the time of Big.
mhm.
And it was just one of many. But slowly, it's created its own kind of fandom, and for good reason. For good reason. You're very smart, Joel. One of the things I really like about you is that you do process things in a very hip way. And the fact that it was kind of an early version of like Rob Zombie like cultural horror that's acceptable in society, is very true. That's right. This was one of the early examples of that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It sort of brought that acceptance of this sort of quiche, kitsch horror, like it's using horror in humorous ways
Right.
where it sort of deflates the dramatic elements of it,
It does. It
and
does.
there's a wide difference between Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the Burbs, although they both exist in the same world, right? They're both, similar stories in some ways,
Right. Well,
but
Joe Dante is a genius. I don't know if you're hip to his movies, but I mean, he's really, really special. He's one of these really special directors. I worked with him more than just on the Burbs. We worked together a couple times, and um, he's genius, and he's a genius, and he gets the best, quirkiest
mm,
kind of something's kind of just slightly unique about the way that he sees film. And then Dana Olson, who wrote the film, is brilliant. I mean, it's a great script. If you've ever read the script, it's a great script. Um, it's actually, just looking back on my life, it's one of the things I'm most proud of is to be a part of that cast and be a part of that film. It really was. It was the best summer of my life.
mm. And it speaks volumes about the production itself, because what ended up happening from that summer is you all created a piece of art, and I use that word specifically, a piece of art that has maintained relevance to this day and has grown, as you said, grown in relevance to the point where I know there's some current activities regarding the Burbs, right? There's actually a TV series in the works.
That's right. There's a TV show that's coming out on Peacock, that follows a son moving back to the neighborhood that apparently has this crazy history. So they're shooting it on the same cul-de-sac.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and I'm confident it's going to be incredible. Seth MacFarlane is executive producing it. Um, I think uh, some of the people. I think Dana Olson, I think, is actually one of the executive producers as well. Um, it's going to be incredible. I'm really looking forward to it.
that's great. That's great. So is there a, timeline expectation for this?
They started the table reading yesterday, I think, and I was getting DMs of people sending me some screenshot of that some one of the actors shot of a script on a table. So I guess they're doing the table reading.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great show.
Fantastic, fantastic.